I remember the night she cried over him. We were 29, Tuesday in November, raining the way Portland rains. Not dramatically, just endlessly. When I got home, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in her lap, eyes red. Ryan had taken a job in London, left without much warning, didn't fight for her, just went. She sat there, shattered in the quiet way. That's worse than screaming. Shoulders folded inward, breath catching every few seconds like she kept forgetting to exhale. I sat down beside her, didn't say anything clever, just put my arm around her and let her cry until she was done. That was the night I decided she was the one I wanted to build a life with. She hurt like a real person and trusted me with it. And I thought, this is what love actually is. Not the kind that takes a job in London and doesn't look back, but the kind that sits on the bed and stays. 9 years later, I still believe that. Everything I'm about to tell you lives in the shadow of that night. Her name is Sarah. Mine is Matt. We built a real life in Portland, a house on Holloway Street. We bought in 2019, a routine that had weight and texture. The kind of life you don't notice you love until it's already gone. She worked as a dental hygienist. I was a manufacturing inside sales manager, 11 years in industrial supply. The kind of job that teaches you to read a situation clearly and make decisions without flinching. I covered the mortgage, both cars, and funded our joint account every 2 weeks without once asking where it went. Not out of generosity, out of trust. There's a difference. What she never knew was that for 3 years, I'd been quietly building a separate savings account. My father's voice, a man should always have a door he can open for himself. By the morning, everything changed. That account held $41,200. I kept it the way you keep a spare key under a stone you hope you never need to lift. The first sign wasn't dramatic. It never is. Small things. Stepping outside to take calls. Leaving the room when a text came in. There's a particular way a person angles their body away from you without realizing they're doing it. And I watched it for weeks before I let myself name what I was seeing. I told myself I was paranoid. We were both tired. Marriage gets quiet sometimes, and quiet isn't the same as something being wrong. Then, on a Thursday evening in late February, going through the joint account the way I do every Thursday, a habit so ingrained it barely registers, I found a charge I didn't recognize. A restaurant called The Lantern Room. Friday, February 28th, $94.17. 2 cocktails, 2 glasses of wine, an appetizer. 9:41 p.m. She'd told me she was at book club that Friday. Book club ends at 8. I closed the laptop and sat in the kitchen a long time. The charge wasn't proof of anything. Not yet. But 11 years of learning to read the moment a deal turns gives you a particular instinct for the gap between what someone is saying and what's actually true, and the gap was there. Going back 6 weeks, then further, turned up 3 more charges at the Lantern Room. October, November, January, all on nights she'd been somewhere else. Book club, a friend's birthday, a late shift at the practice, cross-referencing her calendar on our shared app. Every single date was a conflict, and every lie had been built carefully enough to show she knew she was building one. A colleague who lives near that restaurant mentioned offhand that he thought he'd seen Sarah there a couple months back with some guy. Tall, dark hair, professional look. I asked for the date. He checked his own bank statement. He'd been there for dinner that same evening, November 14th. I already had the name by then. Ryan Callahan, 40 years old, back from London as of September, living not across the country but 12 minutes away on Meridian Avenue in Portland. The county assessor's database confirmed it. A rental unit, lease start date September 2025. He'd come back and she had known for 4 months, across 4 Friday evenings and 16 Sunday mornings of folding laundry beside me and saying nothing. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway for a long time. The house lights were on inside. Behind that door was the woman I had held on a rainy Tuesday in November while she cried over losing him. The same woman who, when he came back, had driven 12 minutes down the road on a string of Friday evenings and come home and gone to bed beside me like nothing was different. I thought about my father's voice. The door, the $41,200. I was grateful I'd listened to him. I was absolutely gutted that I needed to be. There's a specific kind of grief that comes not from losing someone, but from understanding the loss had already happened, quietly without your knowledge, while you were still showing up. I stayed in that driveway until I knew the full shape of it. Then I went inside, said goodnight, and went to bed. Monday morning, I called a family law attorney, 90 minutes in her office, and I came out knowing exactly what needed to happen before I said a word to Sarah. Location data, bank records, calendar conflicts, third-party account. By Wednesday, the folder was 2 inches thick, put together not in anger, but in the same careful way I'd built everything else in my life. Because the man who had covered every mortgage payment, held his wife through her heartbreak, and trusted without question deserved to walk into whatever came next, with something solid in his hands. That folder wasn't evidence of her guilt. It was a record of my life, the one I'd actually been living, versus the one she'd let me believe we were still building together. I waited until Sunday. Same day of the week, she'd stood in the kitchen folding towels while Ryan's name settled into the room between us, like something that had been waiting to land. That felt right. She came downstairs at 9. I was already at the table, 2 cups of coffee, the folder between us. I walked her through everything: the dates, the charges, the timestamps, the Meridian Avenue address, the lease. I read it flat and steady, the way you'd read a parts manifest, because it was the only way I could do it without my voice going somewhere I didn't want it to go. She went from confused to pale in about 40 seconds. The rage had burned off somewhere in that driveway, and what was left was something quieter and harder. The particular grief of a man who had stayed and stayed and stayed, and now understood with complete clarity that staying had been a choice only one of them was still making. You didn't lose the life we had, I told her. You chose to build a different one and run both of them at the same time, for 4 months. Those are two different things, and one of them has consequences. Then I picked up the folder, got my jacket, and left. 11 calls that day. By the 9th, the tone had shifted from tears to anger. I'd invaded her privacy. The location sharing was manipulative. I should have just talked to her. The 11th voicemail said, "I made a mistake. That doesn't mean you get to walk out on 9 years." I understood the logic. I even understood why she believed it. A mistake is a wrong turn you correct the moment you notice it. What she'd done was tend a separate life across 4 months of deliberate Friday evenings, then come home and fold laundry like nothing existed. Those don't feel the same from the inside, and they don't carry the same weight. I saved all 11 voicemails. The divorce was finalized 5 months later. The house was awarded to me. Spousal support was denied. The $41,200 was confirmed premarital, never touched by the marriage. My father's door, the one I'd built over 3 years without quite knowing why, stood open right when I needed it. 4 months after that, Sarah showed up at my apartment. She looked tired in the way people do when they've spent too long alone with themselves. She told me she'd seen Ryan again, that he hadn't changed, still polished, still chasing things that didn't hold. She said she'd been wrong about what she had. I believed her. I genuinely did. But those months had taught me something she couldn't give back. I'd stopped needing someone else in the room to feel like I was worth the room. I'd remembered slowly and without any fanfare who I was before I started bending myself into the shape of someone else's life. I told her I was glad she could see it now. Then I closed the door, not hard, not in anger, just closed it, and stood alone in my apartment and felt, for the first time in longer than I could place, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. If you're sitting where I was sitting, maybe you haven't found the folder yet. Maybe you already have. Here's what I'd say. Pull the financial statements before you touch anything else. People delete texts the same night. What they forget is the location sharing set up 3 years ago for a highway breakdown. The joint account charges that never cross their mind you actually track. Pull the records first. Talk to a family law attorney before you say a single word to your spouse. Get the documentation in order before the other side knows a fight is coming. The law works a lot harder for you that way. And if someone who loved you told you to keep a door open for yourself, listen, build the account, keep it ready. You may never need it, but if the day comes when you do, you'll be glad every morning it was there. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.